Hello, it's Brad Laurie or BlockchainBrad, and today a special interview from none other than the co-founder and CEO of Kyber Network. His name is Loi Luu. Loi, thank you very much for being here to explain all the updates for Kyber Network.
Hey, Brad. Thanks a lot for having me.
Not a problem, mate. Now, as I understand, as you've explained pre-interview, there is a slight issue with connection, and hopefully that does continue and we can have a really solid interview today. But once again, thank you for your time, Loi. And for all those wondering, this is entirely free. There is no payment. There is no under-the-table wheeling and dealing. This is for the people and also for myself to understand more about all the upgrades that have been happening on the Kyber Network. Now, let's get stuck into the beginnings of this so we can explore a little bit about the foundation of Kyber Network. You are unquestionably making moves this year. You are the Onchain Liquidity Protocol. Fundamentally, can you just give us a bit of a rundown on what essentially you are and what you do?
So, Kyber, as you just introduced, we are building an on-chain liquidity protocol. So what we do is we connect different liquidity sources, be it Uniswap, be it Oasis, or be it any other market makers on-chain. And we aggregate all of them together in one single interface to allow the users, the dApp, to integrate and use it seamlessly. So what that means is that Kyber is in the middle of the different liquidity sources and the different use cases, right? Be it end user swap, be it the trading for your own set token, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Or any other DeFi applications. They can all integrate with Kyber and utilize all the connected liquidity sources.
I see, and it's a good analogy how you mentioned it's almost like a hub for all these different services, these new platforms, and even the applications. One of the things that Kyber is renowned for is being a seamless and instant token swap anytime, anywhere. So 24/7, you are that hub. So do you want to just comment on how you've grown as a protocol, as a service, as a platform?
So we started back in 2017, right? And back then our primary focus was to build the best user-friendly decentralized exchange, so that people can easily convert from one token to a different one. If you were around back then, in 2017 there was a boom of all the ICO, right? And there were a lot of new asset, new token being issued every day. And what we wanted to do was that, now given that the users and there are so many asset in the market, can we build one simple solution for people to convert from one asset to a different one, right? And we built that. We launched the mainnet in early 2018. And then we realized, okay, so now, because in terms of use cases, right, there are more than just simple token swap. There are a lot more, right? There are also all the decentralized finance applications. People need decentralized exchange for their own, fund management protocol, for example, right? Mm-hmm. So all of these DeFi applications, they also need to connect to some mechanism for them to convert from one asset to a different one. So we thought hard about it, and then we realized, okay, what we are building at Kyber, we can actually do a lot more, right? We can serve a much larger set of users, not only the retail users who are converting from one token to a different one, but we can also focus on all the application, all the financial applications that has the liquidity need, right? Now, right. Be it in-wallet token swap, decentralized fund management and lending and things like that. All of them need to get access to some platform like Kyber to either liquidate their asset, to rebalance their portfolio, or to convert simply from one token to a different one.
Yes, and it's clear in 2020 you've really evolved in that narrative and in that suite of options and tools that you do now provide, and we're going to explore some of them specifically in this interview as well, Loi. But before we do, I just wanted to introduce a little bit of your experience into the picture, because you aren't like every other CEO. Not everyone has a PhD in computer science. So do you want to just touch on your credentials, on your qualifications, because they're definitely there.
Right. So I Okay, so I started doing research on blockchain and cryptocurrency back in late 2013 when I was, just entering my PhD program, right, at National University of Singapore. So I actually started the research lab there with my supervisor to focus on cryptocurrency and blockchain. And during my PhD, we focused a lot on Ethereum because around that time Ethereum was also introduced, and there was just like so much that we can do with Ethereum back then, right? So we wrote the first paper about a tool that had people like automatically detect whether a smart contract has any vulnerability, right? And we actually did develop that tool as well and release it as open source. The name is Oyente. You can go to oyente.tech and see several projects have been using Oyente to check their smart contract. We also work on a couple of other scalable blockchain protocol, and one of them is utilized and used in Zilliqa, the new blockchain, the new scalable blockchain that was just launched, I think, last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being with the community since the early days, we really wanted to do something that is impactful, right? Something that could help a lot more people than just some tool that only serve the developers, for example. So that's why we wanted to create something that served the retail, something that anyone can use as well, right? And that was the main motivation to create Kyber back then in 2017.
Well, it's clear that you are doing that, because one of the buzzwords right now is pragmatic for the Kyber network, because essentially you're filling a niche need. A lot of people have been looking for that ideal, fast, and instant DEX, that where they can go and do easy and seamless swaps. But let's dig deep into some of the aspects of Kyber now. Now you have reserves. There's a lot of information that's published out there for people to understand. You also have a vast array of other, assets or value propositions, such as providing for applications or dApps, wallets, exchanges. You're conditioned to help the speculator even with regard to what the token itself can do. There's a lot of information. So there's lots going on. Do you want to just touch on different aspects? If we start with, for example, the reserves, it's a big thing.
Right. So the reserve essentially are the liquidity providers, right? Or in other like centralized in this context, they call them as market makers, like the people who actually have a lot of asset and who will create the offers, right? Make the orders so that other people they can take it. So in Kyber, we support different kind of reserve. We have the professional ones, or that we call fat price reserve. So the main job of the fat price reserve is that they set up their inventory, keep it in a smart contract, and from time to time they run their algorithm in the local server, right, or anywhere they want, and they keep updating the price to the smart contract by sending a transaction to the Ethereum smart contract. So we have a few professional market making firms actually set up their own fat price reserve at Kyber, and they so this will allow them to do all the complicated trading algorithm in their backend, right? And all they need to do is from time to time they just need to update the price of their orders on this to the smart contract. And the second type of reserve that we have is that we call automated pricing reserve, or something similar to Uniswap, right? Basically, this kind of reserve, they don't need active management. So there will be some formula to determine the price based on the amount of token buy or sell from the users. But the main advantage of our automated pricing reserve compared to Uniswap, for example, is that you don't need a lot of tokens. You don't need a lot of inventory to actually have a reasonable slippage, right? Like in Uniswap, if you want to have if you want to support something like 10 Ether without with less than 1% of slippage, you may need like, a lot more Ether in the inventory, right?
I see.
Something like, 1,000 Ether. Yeah. But with our automated pricing reserve, you only need something like, probably 1/3 of that inventory required in Uniswap to support that slippage.
Right, that's going to suit a lot of people because not everyone's going to have a substantial amount of Ether, for example, to take advantage of this kind of facility or this kind of reserve. So it does suit the common participant in the system.
Exactly. But the downside is that we cannot like scale the price to infinitely, like what Uniswap is doing. There's some bounded price range, and if the price of the token move out the range, then the reserve manager will have like to top up, like to add more coin or Ether to support the reserve.
I see.
Yeah.
So what was sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask you the third one.
Sure. And the third reserve that we support is the bridge reserve, or the one that we connect to Uniswap, to Oasis DEX and many other on-chain decentralized changes, right? So basically, we can get the quote from Uniswap, from Oasis, and introduce it to the users. So that the users, when they talk to Kyber, they can talk to all the existing on-chain liquidity sources.
Right. Well, it's clear that that's been a big development as part of Katalyst, all the upgrades you've done. And obviously, if people want to go and look into the literature, they can. There's a lot of information set forth in a lot of the mediums and all the publications you have. But I also wanted to touch on just the concept of being that one-stop shop, that single on-chain endpoint, and really get people to understand that you really do want to be this bedrock for on-chain liquidity as a protocol. So do you want to just touch on your goal and your vision, how big you actually want this to become, and how central the protocol of Kyber is to, essentially DeFi even?
Right. So I think there are a few things that we want to, that we want to achieve, right? First of all, the main reason why we run everything on the smart contract is because, we don't want people to trust Kyber, right, when they use Kyber. We don't want people to have to trust Kyber when they use Kyber. So everything is, operating on the Ethereum smart contract. People can verify the code, and we can even like publish all the code, right? All the code audit, so that people would know, like, what's the trade-off, and whether there's a possibility that Kyber can steal people money or things like that, right? So that's one very important property to build one single liquidity stop shop, right? Because we want people to connect to Kyber and to integrate with Kyber and utilize all the connected liquidity sources without the fear that Kyber might step in the middle and steal the money, for example, right? And this being fully on chain also allows many different applications can connect to Kyber as well, right? Like, all the DeFi application, if they run everything on the smart contract, they can just, from the smart contract, they can call Kyber smart contract in one single function. And that's we call seamless integration, right? They don't have to have some bridge to connect to some off-chain servers, right? And, essentially everything is just still on-chain, still within the Ethereum blockchain. And there's no trade-off in terms of like, security assumption, or whether this server of Kyber is being trusted, it won't be compromised or things like that, right? So that allows a seamless composability, right? All the DeFi application that can connect with Kyber easily, seamlessly. And I think these two important properties allowed Kyber to build a much bigger ecosystem than we could have thought of. To date, I think we have more than 90 different applications and more than 20 different reserve or market makers already working on Kyber. Just because I think we want to make it easy for everyone to work with us, and we want people will have a peace of mind when they work with Kyber, they don't have to worry about any potential, flaw or hack or anything like that.
And it's interesting you say that, because I checked some of the feedback from those who use it regularly, and a lot of the feedback is that your interface is quite easy to use. It's quite user friendly. And I had a look, obviously, and it does seem that way, in that you've designed this for the everyday person, so that there isn't a lot of sort of barriers to entry when it comes to engaging in what is this very central key point when it comes to liquidity provision through a protocol, and also acting as a very important DEX service. Now, going back once again to some of those foundational elements, you are underpinning what Kyber stand for. You have key concepts. One of them is all about valuing that on-chain data, which you talked about why, with the transparency and that traceability. But also there's other things like best rates when it comes to the aggregation of liquidity, and the standardization aspect as well, having that key bespoke hub interface. So if you just want to touch on those two things, on the aggregation and on just whether in fact it is true what I'm saying and that you are user friendly.
By design, Kyber already connects to most of the on-chain liquidity sources, and the smart contract will pick the best rate for the taker, right? So what that means is that any users or any integration application, they can just talk to Kyber, and they can be guaranteed to get the best rate available in the market.
Right.
And that's just simply by design, right?
Okay.
And
what about the feedback of the actual design of Kyber itself when it comes to the platform's interface? What's your position as the CEO from all the feedback you've received from all the different parties, from devs, from the application sort of teams that are working with this, and even just general users?
I think we have received some of the feedback. I mean, apart from all the positive feedback, we have received a few feedback on what could be improved, right? And we're actually working on a few of them in the Katalyst upgrade. So one of that is some heavy trading application. They want to have the ability to to route their order via different liquidity sources, right? Like say they want to take 50% of what they want from Uniswap, and they want to take the other 50% from one of the professional reserve, and that will help them achieve better rate. This is something that we think is valuable to many applications as well, especially the ones that do like big trades, right? Like that could do something like 100 or 200 Ether worth in a single trade. Having that ability to route via different reserve will actually help them achieve better rate. And we're actually working on that in the Katalyst upgrade.
I see.
So yeah.
And it's interesting because your volumes have also been steadily increasing, and now significantly increasing in 2020. So that would be ideal, I would imagine, for a lot of those parties that are wanting to do those bigger trades. And obviously, you've mentioned some of those sources.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about security for a moment, because we've seen some interesting developments very recently, and I obviously using a euphemism there, it's been quite detrimental to both Maker, as we've seen unfold, and also to the after effects or the aftershocks of some of the problems we've seen on one particular derivatives platform, then trickled through, and we saw the price of BTC plummet as a result. So are you concerned at all about security issues, either for Kyber or, more importantly, for those other parties that are directly connected through the same interests, such as BitMEX, for example, with their bot attack, or with Maker, for example, with their situation? Are you at all concerned about the longevity of DeFi because of this?
I mean, I am concerned, right? But at the same time, I think we are still in the early phase of our experiment. So there are still a lot of things that we need to do, and we need to improve over time. It's good that the Maker issues happens now, not like when we are 10 times bigger, right? And in terms of security, I think at Kyber we really want to make it like really simple for people to understand what's the trade-off, right? what do you have to trust when you use some platform, right? When you use Kyber. And I think that's the best way to understand about security and to reason about the security. Like for example, in Maker, there's essentially the DAI pack relies on the price feed, right? And during the congested network, the price feed couldn't keep up with the network, and that's the main reason why Maker has that issues, right?
Yes, they actually had their own market optimizer or their own Oracle internally. They use a SegWit for wallet for, but they also were using Chainlink, and unfortunately, the oracles just didn't, have the updated and expedient price feeds that they needed at the time. So that's why I wanted to allude to, whether or not you were concerned, and also with regard to Kyber specifically, are you confident that the code and the technology of Kyber is strong and it can stand the test of time when we're faced with adversities like this?
I think it's hard to make that statement, right? Because one thing about security is that you will never know, whether your system is fully secure, right? So, but what I can say is that at Kyber we follow all the best practices, right? When it comes to securing our system, all the smart contract before we deploy, we have to go, to different independent audits, right? And most of the audits are public. We also have like bug bounties and things like that. And I think what is also super important at Kyber is that we don't do like complicated system, right? We don't build something that is so complicated that we cannot explain to others, right? Because if it's too complicated, then there might be some hidden issues that you cannot recognize.
Sure. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. It also makes it more fixable as well. Now, with regard to some of those key aspects of your design that you're obviously proud of because it's been promoted in your website, and one of them is making sure that the swap is easy. I wanted to find out more about what can be swapped, what's the suite of options, what are the suite of tokens in that DEX service, and also there's the word of build. This idea of really creating a very strong suite of tools, a strong suite of options from wallets, websites, applications. And there's a lot of references to things like NFTs, to DeFi, payments, trading. So a lot in the question, but essentially swap and build.
So in terms of end user swap, we have our own in-house platform called Kyber Swap, so that users can, import their wallet and do the trade with Kyber. But at the same time, we also realize that many users, they already have, some favorite crypto wallet, right? Be it Mito wallet, Trust wallet, and ARM token and things like that. So that's why we just try to work with as many wallets as possible, right? So we integrate with them and make Kyber natively available within the wallet, so that the users, they don't have to go to a third-party website and trust the website to import their private key and to do the trade. They can do everything within the wallet. They don't have to leave the wallet at all, right? So as you can see, Kyber is already available in many popular wallets, Mito wallet, Onchain wallet, Trust wallet, and all the popular ones. I think we are even in the HTC wallet as well, the phone company wallet. They have the blockchain phone. And Kyber is integrated natively there, and that was a great validation for what we have done so far. In terms of building and integrating with Kyber, as I mentioned earlier, because we built everything on the smart contract and run everything on the smart contract, any DeFi application that can just easily integrate with Kyber. And we have seen that, right? We have seen how much easier it is to integrate with Kyber than some other off-chain solution, because they don't need to worry about the trusted server. They don't need to worry about whether their smart contract can talk to someone else's server, right? With Kyber, they from their smart contract, they can just do one single call, right, to our smart contract, and that's it. And everything is done in an atomic manner. That means if the trade happens, then it will happen. Otherwise, everything will be reverted and will be cancelled.
Right. And it's obviously, been important to you to work with Ethereum from the outset, being ERC20, knowing they have the developers, knowing they have the network effects, and just the growing ecosystem that they are building. Are you looking forward also to moving also outside of even that scope and building upon the potential of working with other platforms, for example?
That's an interesting question. We've been asked by a few people as well, but currently our take is that Ethereum is still the leader in the blockchain space. So they haven't got enough traction. They haven't got a big enough community, and be it the number of assets, the number of users, number of tool sets, and things like that, right? So we found no reason for us to move to a new blockchain yet. But of course, Kyber is an open source and it's a public protocol, right? At the end of the day, if anyone is interested, they can take a Kyber and build it in a different blockchain, and we cannot control that.
Right. And what's interesting also, I was having a look at some of the stats for 2019. I mean, 400, I think it's 400 million in volume. I'm not sure if that's the correct number. I just dropped the sheet that I was going to refer to. Right. But quite substantial in terms of all those different numerical achievements that you've done. What's the vision in terms of what you think you can achieve for 2020 in terms of just basic data, concepts of future planning? What numbers do you think you can achieve?
I think in 2020, we started the year very strong, right? We were recognized as the most used DeFi protocol in Binance report. And in terms of the trade volume and the number of users, we keep breaking our own records. Mm-hmm. And that was super, awesome to the whole team, right? Because we have been working hard in the last couple of years, and now we actually, see the result. And this March alone, we haven't finished the month, but we already broke the monthly trading record, right? And it's more than 100 million US
in 1 month.
So in 1 month, and I think we are approaching at least 150 million US in March. Wow. So I think, yep. So I think in 2020, we could potentially break the 2 billion US trade volume in Kyber, and I think it's doable.
And Loi, why do you think that's happening? I mean, obviously there's been a lot of trades happening as a result of some of those more macro concerns we've seen with coronavirus. We're seeing an extreme, situation when it comes to the economic crisis or crises around the world. But, obviously from your experience, you're seeing a very serious or a very exciting influx in all of this trade. I mean, if last year it was 400 million, and now you're talking about 100 million a month, that's significant changes in a positive for you. So what do you think is causing all of this interest?
I think market movement is one major, part of it, right? But at the same time, we also see that most of the volume, I think more than 50% of the volume, actually come from all the integration partners. So what that means is that we see a lot more volume coming from all the DeFi apps, from all the wallets that integrate with Kyber. So that shows that the volume contribution from the ecosystem is actually growing stronger and better, right? And I think because of the pickup in DeFi, a lot more users are starting using DeFi application and indirectly introduce more volume to Kyber. I think that is also a very strong reason for the increase in volume and adoption.
Right. I was also looking at the graphics or the images that you have on your website and different medium articles that show the integrations and also the applications. There's a lot there. What are your insights that you can provide, I guess, for the people with regard to future development? Is there plans to really significantly expand this beyond the numbers and that we see for the integrations and for the applications and for everything that's building in the Kyber network?
So I think the applications that integrate with Kyber so far they are all great, right? They have solid use case. They know how to grow their adoption. And at Kyber, we are trying to help them to actually have some revenue model from all the integration. So with that, after the Katalyst upgrade, we will allow all the dApp, all the integration will customize their own trading fees. So all the integration applications, they can customize their own fees, right? So they could, be more innovative when it comes to serving the users and how to charge the users, right? This will help a lot to actually improve their revenue, right? Because so far, at the moment, Kyber only has one fixed model for all the integration to earn revenue. That is part of the fees. But if they think that they can support something like meta transaction to their end users, then they should deserve to charge higher fees, right, to cover their expenses. And if the user likes the experience and they want to pay more fees, then why not, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's one of the.
And it's really exciting that you've built that. And sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to mention that because you built that provision in, it's going to attract, I would imagine, more people to your network because you provide that customization. And I want to talk more about some of those changes you've made to the new token model as well. But before we do, one interesting thing you did, Loi, with regard to the reserves, if we can just go back there for a moment, is you designed it so that you had the taker, the maker, and the maintainer built in for the contract. Do you want to just talk a bit more about that process of liquidity provision so we can understand, just how much forethought went into building the system?
Right. So basically, we have all the makers, right, or all the reserve to place their own inventory available in the smart contract. And what they need to do is they need to update the price, right, from time to time. Say every minute, every 2 minutes, or they can even have some formula to help them update the price. And because all of them are on the smart contract already, right? So when the takers they want to do a transaction, they want to do a trade, what they do is they just send a transaction to Kyber contract, right? And Kyber will source, will find the best rate available within all the market makers, right? And pick the best one, do the swap, and return the token to the end users. And everything is done in one single transaction that will guarantee the atomicity, right? So the users, they don't have to worry that their fund got stuck or got locked up in one transaction or things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point you say, that it's in one transaction, because not every system's like that. And that's really what's going to create that seamlessness as well.
Right. And I think it also helps, all the DeFi integration as well, because, we have seen enough of, all the composability between different DeFi applications, right? And people call it the DeFi Lego. So, without the atomicity, you cannot do something like that. Yep. So that's why Kyber is one of the most integrated protocol within all the DeFi applications. Because we run everything on chain and everything is atomic.
Right. Now, what about some of the other sort of suite of tools that you have or options? You have things like KyberSwap, KyberGo, Kyber Developer, and then there's other, as we've alluded to, there's other wallets and applications. But I was fascinated that you have a specific area for Kyber developers.
Right. So because we wanted to work with all the integration partners, and we think that moving forward, they're going to be the best way for us to get more adoption, right? And we want to work with every single one of them and serve their own users, right? And that's why we wanted to make it easy for people to find information about Kyber, to do the integration with Kyber as well. So we have, documentation, we have tool, we have script, everything is ready for the developers. If they need to do anything, they only need to go to Kyber developers, download the thing, and just run the script, and that's it. And
right.
Yep. So that's
okay. And what about KyberGo, for example? What's that about?
So KyberGo was a project that we started back in I think early 2018 And the goal was to have all the token project to do the token sale in a decentralized manner, right? And then we realized that it's not actually the best tool for everyone because of all the complication in setting up the transaction, setting up the wallets and things like that. So that's why we cancel it to focus more on what we have been building at Kyber. And so far, we think that it was one of the best decision that we have made.
I see. Now, one of the things I'm sure you do enjoy talking about, Loi, is the Kyber Network Crystal, as it's known with KNC, your ticker for your token. Now, as we were talking about before, it's an ERC20, but there's been developments in terms of the value of KNC, why someone would want to, regard it as valuable. So I wanted to break that down with you if we could, because we've talked about reserves as one of those value propositions, but there's also some others with regard to commissions for applications or wallets or vendors. And then there's also the fees as well for the network. So do you want to just touch on why the token itself has value and why it has real utility?
Right. So at the moment, KNC plays two different important roles. One of that is to serve as a medium of as a medium of fees, right? For in the network, and in every transaction there will be some fees in KNC collected by the network, and the network will just distribute these fees into two different portions, right? One is to all the integration partners who introduce the transaction. I think at the moment they get around 30% of the collected fees, and the rest 70% of the fees will be burned. That means we just take it out of circulation, and the smart contract we just do that, right? And we don't have to do any accounting or anything in a centralized model to do that,
right?
What that means is that if there's more adoption, if there's a higher trade volume, then there will be more KNC burned, right? And the total supply will be reduced over time. And I think that will bring some value to KNC. At the same time, all the integration partners, they also have the incentive to work on introducing more users to Kyber and to get the commission as one of the revenue sources for them.
Mm-hmm.
But after Katalyst, which we are working hard at the moment, and we plan to launch within Q2, there will be more utility to KNC.
I see.
Yeah, do you want me to
yes,
cover
please.
it now? Or
well, actually, let's hold that because I'm going to ask more about Katalyst, I promise, and we'll dig deep because it looks really exciting what you are doing. But I'm hearing Q2 from you, and that's not far away. So we'll definitely focus on Katalyst very soon in the interview. Don't worry. Now, just before we do, though, I just want to touch on one important and hot topic, and that's wrapped BTC. Now there's a prospect or the possibility to move over and utilize Ethereum. How is that going? Is it popular? Because we saw the likes of Tether, for example, popularize this notion. So how's it going for you in the context of BTC to Ethereum?
So Wrap BTC was the project that we work with many other companies and projects in the space to launch it. And so far, I think the adoption has been quite good. The total amount of BTC that we have on Ethereum is increasing every day. I think at the moment I'm not sure what's the correct number, but the last time I saw it was around 300 Bitcoin. So we wanted to have a solution, a very simple solution to bring Bitcoin to Ethereum, right? Because we're talking about decentralized finance, we're talking about trading in cryptocurrency, and all of that won't matter much without Bitcoin, right? Because Bitcoin is still the largest market cap coin. There's a lot of value locked in there, and there's a strong community backing it up, right? So we want to bring that over to Ethereum. We want to have that Bitcoin value and Bitcoin liquidity in all the DeFi application or the DeFi protocol. So that's why we partner up with other project and to just have one simple and easy to understand solution to bring Bitcoin to Ethereum.
I see.
That
And
was,
how's it going now for you, Loi, in terms of popularity? Is it a popular, I guess, token? Is it a popular product?
I think a lot more projects are using WBTC. Kyber, Compound, DYDX, and a few others as well.
Mm-hmm.
In terms, and I think we can also see that the amount of Bitcoin being brought to Ethereum has been increasing over time. I think at the moment we have almost 1,000 Bitcoin already, and we really look forward to increase this, this number further.
Right, and it does seem that that's the trajectory. That's where things are likely to go. Especially even this week, we saw some signs of return to, faith in and belief in and confidence in the crypto marketplace. So,
right.
If everything goes to plan and all of the things that happen with halvings, many halving events coming, particularly Bitcoins, it's looking like more attention certainly is on the crypto ecosystem. Now, let's talk about that big development, and that is Katalyst. We've been touching on that through the interview, but a big deal because essentially it's about you upgrading the entire system, making it stronger, making it better, making it faster. Do you want to just touch on the key aspects of that? I've written down a few notes like staking, the Kyber DAO, improvements obviously in your liquidity contributions, and most importantly, it's that the fee structure, the way in which you have more opportunity and more freedom. So just give us a bit of a rundown on why Katalyst is so important for the evolution of Kyber Network.
So we have been building Kyber. I think this is our third year, and so far we have seen great adoption and traction from the community. But we really think that we can do a lot more, right? And with Katalyst, there are a few important things that we want to achieve. First of all, we want to have the community to be more involved in the development of Kyber. And with that, we want to launch Kyber DAO, right, as a decentralized governance protocol to allow the community members, the currency holders, to be part of the development, to have their opinions, shared and heard, and eventually will impact the direction of Kyber. And we also realized that so far we have been burning currency, but this currency collected in the network contract can be utilized in a better way to actually incentivize people to be part of the development of Kyber. So what that means is that we can use the fees to reward to people who actually participate in the governance, right? And we can also use that fee to reward to market makers who actually contribute a lot more volume and liquidity to Kyber.
Right. And if I can just jump in there for a moment, I thought that was a very sophisticated development because not only is it important to move beyond just burning alone, and you, I'm sure, know other models that do focus on that model, but your experience has been also in the blockchain area of blockchain security. So I found that it was a very mature move to evolve and allow for rewards and incentivization to be part of your structure. So do you want to just keep touching on this in terms of even when it comes down to regulation, for example, this is arguably a boon for you in that direction of utility?
So we wanted to do it in a fully decentralized manner, right? And we also want to reward the people who actually do the work, who actually spend their time, spend their currency and voting power to be part of the governance, right? And with this, I think we only reward, or the smart contract, we only reward to people who actually stake currency and who vote in all the governance poll, right? And they have to actually send us a transaction to the blockchain to cast their vote, so we can recognize all of that, right? And to reward the right people instead of like giving the fees to every currency holders. That's not our intention.
I see.
Our intention is to reward people who actually participate and help in the governance.
Right. So those who work they get the rewards and the incentives, and those who build out Kyber and do positive, proactive and meaningful work, they're the ones that are going to get the incentives and rewards. I think that's a really beneficial system. How has the feedback been from the community? Because you have a very strong one with the staking and voting and new incentive structure.
I think people love it. People love it because previously, every time we burn some currency or the smart contract burns some currency, there was some spark in the excitement from the community, and that's it, right?
Right.
There's not much that the community can do to support the project and to be part of the project. And with Katalyst, a lot more discussion have been happening on our Discord. For example, people ask critical question like how much you want to reward to the DAO, how much you want to give it to the reserve managers, and things like that. And I think that's we call an healthy ecosystem, right? In which all the currency holders, they can discuss, they can chime in, and they can raise their point.
Absolutely, and it makes it so much more democratic. So on that note, Loi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it just relates to what you're saying. What are the kind of percentages? Because I watched one of your small videos, educational videos, and there was numbers like 10%, 10%, 80% in, for those different sort of ratios for different parties in the distribution of incentives or rewards. So how do you work it out? And what's the sentiment of the community as you try to deliberate and work this out?
So the idea here is that we are not going to decide on the numbers ourselves, right? We are going to ask the community to decide it together. So there's going to be a poll later on so that people can vote on what's the actual distribution that they think is the right one. And we are, we just take that winner vote. Yeah.
I see. So you really are switching to moving much more towards that decentralized vision and goal, and heading towards that, proof is in the pudding with regard to the staking and the voting. That is actualizing and turning on that DeFi button for you. That decentralized button, I should say. Now, with regard to those who benefit from this upgrade, very specifically, you've outlined three parties: the reserve managers, the dApp integrators, and the KNC holders. So everyone, seems to be able to get some of the benefits of this move.
Right. So for the reserve manager, we actually have a new fees model so that it will be much simpler for them to be part of the network. And they also get the rebate based on their contribution in liquidity and volume. I think that's a great incentive for them to be, devoting more to Kyber, right? And for the dApp integrations, they, as I mentioned earlier, they will have the ability to customize their fees. I think this will allow a lot more innovation from the dApp integrations. And I think it also helps them to improve their revenue as well. So the KNC holders, they will be part of the project now, right? They will participate in the governance to receive reward and to I think to help the project decide what's best for Kyber. And I think that's the first time we are able to do it.
Well, it's going to be exciting this year because Q2, this is all going to unfurl. Do you have any clear dates yet, or is it not yet set in stone?
So this is tricky, right? Because we are talking to a few auditors at the moment to audit our smart contract before we can actually deploy it. So at the moment, because of the recent hack, all the auditors are busy, right?
I'm sure.
So we're trying to secure at least two of them. But there's no fixed date yet, but we are still confident that we can launch in Q2.
Got it. Now, one thing that is exciting, I suppose, is that there are there's quite a few key stakeholders, and they're mentioned in some of the literature. Do you think that there's going to be even a greater number of those key stakeholders who take part in the ecosystem, not just, those parties that are there as speculators or therefore to prop up the value and partake, as small users, but these big ones?
I think at least we'll see more users, more KNC holders to stake and to participate in the governance. Looking at what happens at other projects like Synthetics, I think the community, they want to be part of the project and they want to participate in the governance.
Right.
So we really hope that we can see the same success in Kyber as well.
Yes, no, I would imagine that will happen. It does seem like you guys do there's a lot of conversation, a lot of support for each other there. Now, you've mentioned the Kyber DAO. It's going to be really exciting to see that unfold in the spirit of decentralization. Now, what can a person do, for example, if they're new to Kyber, and they want to better understand how they can get involved? What can they do to take part? We've mentioned the swap is there, the building is there. And what about, just simply the token aspect? I mean, obviously they could list their token, so there's different people perhaps looking at this from different perspectives for different use cases. So I've tried to itemize them from swap, build, list a token. And then the final one that we didn't really talk about is speculation, because that exists too. People just want to speculate on Kyber.
Yeah, I think we have enough resources for everyone, right? We have the developer platform for anyone who wants to build something with Kyber. We even have hackathons and both virtual and physical hackathon for people to build something meaningful on top of Kyber, and we give reward to them, right? We have information and about the project, about what's our plan and things like that, so that if KNC token holders, they want to learn more about the project, they can always do. I think it's the same for the governance and everything. And I think the best place for people to learn about Kyber is to join our Discord, right? And also to join our Telegram and visit our blog. There are a lot more people to help them understand Kyber and the progress and vision of Kyber as well.
Absolutely, and congratulations on that development with Discord. I think it's a great move to really focus on development, building out the plans for this year. An interesting development was the interoperability of Kyber with regard to the cross-chain integrations. Now, we've had the discussion about other platforms, but what is really interesting is EOS. I was surprised that there was reserves built in there. So in that respect, are you still focused on EOS, or are you reverting back really to focus for now on Ethereum and the reserves and the cross-chain elements there?
So EOS was part of our experiment to bring more asset between EOS and Ethereum over to the other chain, right? So we initiated the project called Loi Luu. It's essentially a trustless bridge between EOS and Ethereum. So we wanted to bring asset like EOS or any other token over there over to Ethereum and make them available to all the DeFi application. And at the same time, we also want to allow all the tokens on Ethereum to be more, to have more present on EOS, right? Because there are still some active use cases over there. And in order to do that, we launch also the YOLO swap to allow people to do that eventually. But with the recent development on EOS, I think we keep monitoring the adoption and the traction over there, and we see there's a lot of dramas, and also a lot of the number of users keeps going down.
Yes.
So we think that it's best for us to stay focused on Ethereum and deliver Katalyst.
I had a feeling you might say that, and I was going to ask this there's another platform, I'm sure you can imagine what it is, and it's Tron. We see also drama or controversy, all kinds of things coming from those kinds of platforms. Are you looking at any of those? I'm sure they're trying to get in. I'm sure they're trying to contact you.
So as I mentioned earlier, at the moment we have no interest in other platform. Because I think the community is here in Ethereum, right? So we have to really focus on Ethereum and deliver what we promise.
Right. Now, one of the exciting things that has been a development recently is the enablement or the enabling of merchant payments as well, Loi. That's a big deal because we're talking about global commerce now. we're talking about the potential for mainstream parties to start to utilize the benefits of open blockchain. So what's coming there? You know, what are you building in terms of trying to engage that world? Because you're so pro decentralization, but are you also willing to open up the door of enterprise?
So the payment use case that that we wanted to support is the use case that, you know, if you have any token, if you have your own token, and the merchants, they only accept like DAI or USDT or, you know, USDC, right? Then, you know, your payment can go via Kyber, right? And Kyber can do the swap to convert it to the token that the merchant accepts. And everything is still in one single transaction. So it's no different than you sending your DAI to the merchants, right? And we actually got like a few merchants actually adopted that use case. I think there's one merchandise for like crypto shirt and things like that. They really like the project because now they can accept more users, right? They can allow more users to pay when they check out. And a few crypto conferences also allow people to pay in DAI or in Ether or in any other token. And the conference organizers still receive the payment in DAI, so they don't have to worry about the volatility of the payments.
I see that. That's an important point, but you're also reinforcing the potential of many of these assets to have almost like a money-like status. As we know, the narrative now of ETH being money is certainly there as one of its value propositions, but this reinforces the possibility of others also having that status.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
But I think so far the adoption of crypto payments is still limited, right? We haven't seen much more adoption than compared to what we expected. So I would say compared to the swap use case, the payment use case is still still needs time to grow.
Absolutely. And on that note, are you bullish on more proof of use cases? Because obviously now we still see speculation and sentiment are key buzzwords in crypto, but it does seem that there is a flippening of purpose in the space where we start to see greater evidence empirically that we're not just a bunch of speculators, but there's a lot more happening in the background to start to build out the real inherent value of blockchain.
Yeah, I think I do see like there are more use cases in the space, right? Now all the fund management and all the fund activities, they can be done on the blockchain in a transparent manner, right? And they can for example, they can tokenize all the real world asset and bring it to the blockchain. And people, the fund manager, they only need to focus on managing that asset on the smart contract. And a lot of people are building that use case, right? Like, Melonpot, SET protocol, and a few others as well.
Right.
And also like, crypto lending is one example, right? Now, I think for the first time that we can do lending without the worry that the other party may go bankrupt, for example, right? I think over time there will be more useful use cases that are popping out, right?
Right. Especially given the financial crisis we're seeing in the mainstream. I mean, if there ever was a time in history where there should be some attention placed on a new system or a new innovation, it would be, and it should be now. And it does seem to be playing out that way, given that so many of the mainstream financial sectors and institutions are really stressed right now. If we can talk a little bit more on some of the applications that are of interest to you, are there any that you see in the space of crypto that really stand out outside of Kyber, for example, that you think or you perceive to be some of the stars in the space, for their utility, for their use case?
I think asset management is one of the use case that I really like, because I think there's just a lot of like inactive asset over there, and people just cannot find the right place to put their fund in, right? And also like something like Uniswap, I think is a perfect example of how people can innovate in the space. I think it's automating the market making is great, right? Like you don't need like a professional traders to manage the asset for you. You can just place it to the contract, and basically it will just run, right? But no, okay. So whether or not you make money, I'm not sure, right? But at least you have some set place that you can put your money there, right? Um, yeah, and I think a few other I think there have been some development in the um, what do I call it, in the usability aspect as well. Like people like, I think there are a few projects that allow people to create the wallets easier, right, and manage the wallet just like they manage their own email account. And I think that's super important in onboarding more users to the space. And we really need like more and more solutions like that.
Absolutely. And I like the way you're thinking about essentially the tools. You know, a lot of the time when I ask this to people, they talk about those core projects that have a token, but many of the things you're saying don't make that, those developments may not need a token. They just really enhance the narrative of decentralization, really build out towards that common thread and goal. With regard to partnerships, obviously you get that question a lot, I'm sure, in interviews, and my intention is not to create FOMO here, but to really authentically understand the nature of partnerships that you do forge and how important they are, how real are they in the plan for 2020?
I think Kyber has been working hard to secure more partners, to secure more integrations, and we really appreciate all the partnership that we have, right? And I think by just looking at the numbers, back in 2018, Kyber Swap, our own in-house swap platform, contributes, I think, almost like 70 to 80% of the volume to Kyber. But to date, I think Kyber Swap contribute less than 40% of the volume to Kyber, and the rest, comes from other integration partners. So at Kyber, we have been, valuing other integrations and partners, greatly, right? Just by looking at the numbers, I think in Kyber Swap in early, I think in 2018 and early 2019, Kyber Swap contributed, I think, up to 70 or 80% of the volume to Kyber. But to date, I think at the moment, Kyber Swap contribute less than 40%, and the rest comes from other integrations. So I think, at Kyber, we really, think that integrations and partners are super important, and we need to really grow together to be more successful.
Right. So do you want to drop any hints of anything that's coming, perhaps that, might excite your audience, might excite your community with regard to really important developments for 220?
I think there are a few partners that we have been talking to build a staking platform for KNC holders, right? So basically, there's the delegation features in KyberGo, and the KNC holders, they can just delegate their vote to any staking platform, for example, so that they don't have to actively manage their vote. And I think that is a great tool for KNC holders to be indirectly part of the KyberGo, and to attract more community members to be part of the DAO as well.
Yes, that is exciting. So that's coming. From what you're saying, that's going to be great. And obviously, again, for the Katalyst upgrade, that's coming in Q2. Now, a tough question: risks, weaknesses, concerns. Do you have any concerns, or are there any issues at all in the Kyber network that you wanted to raise that, as a CEO, you've had to address?
I think the main concern is always about the broader crypto market. Right? I really hope that we can increase the adoption of cryptocurrency and public blockchain, and that the interest of the community and of the people will only improve over time, right? And we won't it won't happen that there's no one there are not many people actually got interested in the space anymore. if that happens, then all of what we have been building is just, to be useless, right? Because what's the point of technology if no one uses it?
Well said. I mean, hopefully we don't see those BitMEX bot attacks. Hopefully there's no more Black Thursdays. Hopefully no more Black Swan events. But right now we're in the thick of it, aren't we? I mean,
Right.
to be real, there's a lot going on. How are you coping through this, to be honest? I would imagine it's quite stressful seeing the market the way it moves, but also just in the more real sense of the world, the way that the financial trend is. It's on a downturn, the mainstream.
Exactly.
So how are you feeling about that as CEO of Kyber?
I think it's not a great moment to run a business, right? And also like to have a team that you are responsible for. But at the same time, we have prepared, right? We have enough cash so that we can, sustain for a few more years.
Mm-hmm.
We have been through this cycle a few times, right? It's not that the first time that we see the crypto market is this low, but this is the first time to many of us to experience the global crisis, right? And I think I think many of us are worried, right? Because if the global market is not doing well, then unlikely that the crypto market is doing well.
I wanted to ask you, Loi, with regard to the question of long term, whether or not it'll decouple and really start to show more evidence empirically that it is actually running on its own accord, running on its own steam. Not just Bitcoin, but obviously the whole space of crypto. We're starting to see nuances of that right now, actually, today. So are you bullish on crypto despite or in spite of all of this drama, all of this serious health risks and all of the very, very concerning economic crises going on around the world?
I think I am super bullish for crypto to be one of the asset that people should consider. But at the same time, I think in the global downturn of the economy, cryptocurrency is just one of the risky assets that not many people want to hold. Luckily, we still have a lot of true believers, right? And that's why we still see that the price is recovering. But I think in any like global downturn or crisis, people will just want to park the asset in something safe. Like cash is always the ideal choice. We could see that stock, even like gold, they are all got sell off, right? And everything reduced the price in the
short term. It did, but it's interesting you mentioned cash, that dirty word, because in my country of Australia, that asset, that's alleged asset, also crashed. So what's interesting now is that we have very savvy young people aged between 20 and 40 or 20 and let's say 50, still young. And many of these people are aware now of the vulnerabilities of many of the assets that exist in the world, many of these things that we've always considered to be relatively stable, for example, like fiat. Now we're seeing that's not the case and everything's basically been thrown out the window. And now, especially with the crisis of health being a reality, many people are at home now, not engaged as much because of their own health needs and the requisites of their country. And perhaps they're engaging more, paying a bit more attention to the value of volatility, because we're still in a very volatile market today, literally today even, but we're seeing it attract the attention of many given the pros and cons. Because as you mentioned, it is volatile, it is high risk, but it's also high risk, high return. So It's going to be exciting to see what happens in that speculative frame. But in terms of tech, you as CEO with your computer science background, honestly, it's been an honor to be able to speak with you to learn more about Kyber Network, because you are the real deal. And I will literally, happily state that I invested my own funds to support Kyber, not only obviously for the speculative interest, but because in my view, it's clear you've been building for some time now.
Thanks a lot, Brad.
No worries. Mate, is there anything you'd like to say to finish off the interview, one of the slogans is Kyber Together, a key strategy to really bind the community. Is there anything you'd like to say to the community? Because they're the ones, without them, you'd have literally no future.
Exactly. So we really want to see more, contribution from the community. You can build something on Kyber. You can use Kyber or any, integration partners that already work with Kyber, or you can also participate in KyberGo. So join our community, join our Discord, and we'll see each other there.
Absolutely. Well, Loi Luu, thank you very much as the CEO of Kyber Network. I genuinely appreciate this very long interview. I know that it's been long for all those listeners. Hopefully it's been informative. Hopefully it's been, detailed as well if you wanted to know any aspect, especially with Katalyst. That was the big part that I really wanted to focus on. If you'd like to know more, I'll make sure there are descriptions in the information below so that you can go and click on those and learn more about the Kyber Network. But until next time, hopefully, Loi, we can catch up again and focus on key aspects as you develop and you grow in 2020 and beyond.
Awesome. I look forward to that. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
You're welcome, mate. Take care.